Hello.
And welcome to We're Not Blowing Hot Air, powered by Oxygen Plus. I'm Scott.
And I'm Lauren.
And we're here to help elevate your IQ on wellness and business stuff that's sometimes misunderstood.
Oh, like recreational oxygen?
Yes.
Let's get smarter with this week's guest of We're Not Blowing Hot Air. What kind of dog did you get?
It's an Aussie Doodle.
Oh my God, everybody! How awesome is that?
An Aussie Doodle, yeah.
So you can bring him to O+.
I can bring the dog to O+.
After they're well trained. We have a dog policy, friends.
Yeah.
They have to be a dog, and they have to be.
It has to be a dog.
I can't bring a cat. I can't bring a hypoallergenic cat in, but you can bring a hypoallergenic dog in if they are really well trained.
Yeah, that's what we got to work on. But she is her name is Lulu, and she's 11 months old. Her birthday will be at end of November. I think it's November 26th. I'll double check that, but pretty sure that's what it is.
You got to know that date.
And yeah, so
why did you pick up a dog that was 11 months old versus like a newborn puppy?
Well, I think it was the right combination of the type of dog we wanted, a hypoallergenic dog for our household. There's some allergies and stuff.
It wasn't just for O+.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
Right. And so it was the right combination of the type of dog, location, and also so the reason was the family that had the dog, they got the dog over COVID and job situations changed and things like that. They just weren't able to put the attention into the dog needed a home.
COVID
it was just
rescue
kind of
dog.
Yeah, essentially. The kids are head over heels in love. My two kids are head over heels in love with the dog. My wife, Lindsay, is very happy, and I am. I'm happier than I thought I would be. I had very little time to warm up to the idea of getting a dog, and then suddenly have to warm up to the idea of having the dog in the house.
You're very kind and flexible person. That's great. That's awesome.
It's all about what they wanted, and I will accommodate.
Yeah, I have Splash here, right with me here in the studio.
Yeah,
and she's pretty well trained. I trained her for 1 hour every day the first year of her life.
An hour every day.
Yeah.
Wow.
And a lot of it was the same thing, routine.
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot of just sitting and waiting. She can wait up to around 4 or 5 minutes with a treat in front of her paw, even if I'm not in the room.
Yeah.
She won't go for it.
Wow.
It's impulse control, but potty training's big. It's the first thing.
It's definitely going to be a learning curve for me. You know, I've never had my own dog. I've lived with dogs before that were pretty much already trained.
Okay.
So I've never had to go through that with a dog anyway.
Well,
done it with humans.
Well, Scott, I would have never preached about like, for instance, I don't have children, so I wouldn't give you like parent advice. But I do have Splash. I do have a dog.
Yeah.
So I do have some advice I wanted to share with you.
Okay.
And really in the form of books. The first one is called The Dog Listener.
The Dog Listener. Okay.
And so this is a book by Jan Fennell, Fennell. And I read this book. I found it quite helpful.
Okay.
So the subtitle is Learn How to Communicate with Your Dog for Willing Cooperation.
I like it.
It's really important. I like to treat Splash like a human, an equal, in the sense of like, I'm not going to demean or treat her like an object. I don't think of myself as an owner. I consider myself her handler or her custodian.
Oh, okay.
And, she brings so much joy, and she's a wild animal at heart. So I just always try to keep that frame of mind on the dog. Along that line, there's a book called Inside of a Dog.
Inside of a Dog.
I can't. Maybe. Okay.
Really?
And the subtext or the subtitle is, let's read that too. Because that could get a little.
Inside of a Dog, what dogs see, smell, and know. Okay. So
we do know dogs actually don't see in black and white. There are certain shades they see better. So they do have color in their vision. We do know that their nose is a stronger scent. I think it's like 800 or 6,000, I don't know, more accurate and more, they can smell that way better than we can, essentially, right? So, and then hearing is their second strongest sensory information processing. So sight, like us, we're really sight and then hearing. So when a dog and a human come together, there's a lot of ways of looking at the world that are different. And
that
so
makes sense.
I think you're gonna really, that's an easy read. It's a good book. I mean, it mentions like there are different types of walks you can even take with your dog. Like one is where they get to lead. Just let them choose where they go.
Okay.
And dogs are so smart, they will process and understand it. So I think that's really cool. And by the way, walking with your dog is the most important and singular way to bond with your dog. Oh, really? Yeah.
Walking.
Every day.
That's the way. Okay.
Walking. And so even if it's Lindsay's, your wife's dog, or your kid's dog or whatever, if you really want to know how to really own this dog, you walk with it.
Take the dog for walks. Okay.
And then you can learn how to walk later and healing and all that.
Yeah.
I think the other most important thing that a lot of people don't know about dogs is when you feed them, make sure that you don't leave the food down longer than 15 minutes in any feeding time.
Oh, really?
Because intuitively they want to know that you're the one, or they should be able to know that you're the one that provides, and they'll have less anxiety. So even if they don't eat for 3 days, by the third day, they're going to eat.
Yeah.
And sometimes it helps them get a sense of feeling at peace and rest. So food is really important. The walking is really important. And if there's ever other behavioral issues, like they're barking or jumping up on you, also that probably goes back to, do they feel secure? Do they feel safe? So that's, I wanted to share that with you in this place because you have to listen to me here.
That's true. Yes.
On episode 7 of We're Not Blowing Hot Air, we face the facts about keeping our faces healthy and looking fresh with Sabrina Elhis, a leading esthetician, educator, and owner of Sabrina Brow and Skin in Minneapolis, Minnesota. A powerhouse in the aesthetic industry, Sabrina reveals the skincare essentials every human, young and old, male and female, needs to know to protect and care for the health of the face. Citing current research and science, and even examining institutional barriers holding back important yet little-known truths, Sabrina breaks down 4 key products you can use for an effective face care regimen. Learn how to combat damage from the sun, pollution, and blue light streaming from your screens so you feel confident facing your world. All this and more about the essentials of skincare for your face on We're Not Blowing Hot Air.
Welcome to the podcast. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you.
We're excited.
I'm glad to be here.
So you're an esthetician. Am I saying that correctly?
You are.
Esthetician. All right.
Very good.
Great.
Try spelling it.
No, thanks. So what is an esthetician exactly, and how do you become one?
So an esthetician basically specializes in skincare. We study, all of the biology of the skin, how it functions, and then we move into how skincare affects it. And in the state of Minnesota, each state is regulated differently. So in the state of Minnesota, you can be an esthetician or an AP esthetician. So most people who go to school now typically come out with their AP. So there are hours added to your degree now because so many estheticians are working with doctors and lasers, doing advanced modalities like IPL treatments, skin pen, which I do. If you come out now in the state of Minnesota with just your aesthetic license, which I came out with 25 years ago, you really can just do a facial. You're not licensed to do any sort of deep exfoliation to the skin. You would have a career in a spa. If you're really serious about actually having a career, you get your AP license. So then you go on to the schooling that teaches you how to work with lasers, but for sure how to work with things like dermaplaning, where we use the modified surgical scalpel, skin pen, microneedling. Some are taught the hydrofacial, just depending on where you go. So there are some advanced modalities that we're able to do strictly as estheticians if you are working for a doctor in a clinic, or if you have a medical directorship in your individual business.
how did you get interested in this? I think our listeners would be interested to know, Sabrina, how you became an AP licensed esthetician.
So as far as getting interested in aesthetics, I was a child of acne. So most people who experience acne know there are a few different several skin conditions that are really quite debilitating, both, physically and mentally, socially. And acne is one of them for sure. So I was a kid of acne, and when you are a kid of acne or even an adult of acne, you find yourself, because a lot of adults start experiencing acne that have never had it before. And suddenly it's like, what's going on? You really start looking for answers. So you spend a lot of time just looking for answers. And when I came along, we didn't have a lot of answers. We certainly didn't have the category of skincare that we have now that can address different needs. I was just taken to a dermatologist. He took a comedone, which is a metal extractor. What I had was primarily non-inflammatory acne, which is very grainy and sits under the skin. I had some inflammatory stuff as I got older through the hormonal area of your face. But he would take the comedone and just literally dig out the lesions in my face.
Wow.
How long was that treatment? How many sessions?
Oh, it was throughout my childhood, throughout my teen years, probably ages 12 to 16.
That must have been really hard. I mean, those years aren't easy anyway.
Yeah. That's a layer of difficulty.
Yeah.
And, things get said to you. Kids are not, I don't want to say kids are cruel. I don't think they know. They don't, well, they are, but they don't know. Sometimes they just don't know the effect that certain things have.
Yeah.
Right.
So things stick with you, just like one sentence said to you over a course of time can stick with you. So I feel for, of course, I love now as I'm older, the whole anti-aging category, and I love helping women, feel confident in their skin as they get older. Women feel confident in their skin as they're beginning to see aging, in their 30s, and then, kids and younger adults that are struggling with acne. I mean, I just love being able to help them.
What's your mix of clients between kids with acne and women, maybe some men too, but women who maybe are fighting the effects of aging?
I would say the primary part of my business is 35 to 55 plus, really anti-aging. Kids, parents have to take the first step. I do a lot of work with several kids, and the parents that have been really on board with bringing them in every 2 weeks for their treatments, and really purchasing their products when they need it and really communicating with me. It's the parents that are really on board that we have a lot of great results with the kids. The parents that aren't, and kids have to be on board too, right? Because you're dealing with, and even especially if it's boys, but a lot of girls too, it's like, oh, I forgot to do that. Oh yeah, I'm not using that product. And, Face Reality, which I do work with when it comes to acne, is very regimented. I mean, you have to, literally.
And that's a brand.
That is a brand.
That is a brand. Listeners and viewers.
Yes. And they have a 92% success rate with acne. So that's pretty incredible. You are asked to sign agreements, like really, in order for me to offer you the results that you see in the photos, you have to agree to do what I tell you to do. And the kids and parents who really, really do what we tell them to do are the ones that have success.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's great.
So
it's really cool.
Just to close the gap here on your experience becoming an esthetician yourself. You got through the teen years. You had treatments that aren't done as much today.
Not as much today because we have a lot better products. Even pharma have better products, but with the skincare line that I work with, Face Reality, we take you off of all of your pharma products. We won't work with you unless you take off, get all of those things off the table.
Yeah.
So then to finish closing the gap, I went to the University of Maryland, graduated with a marketing degree. was interested in textiles, did some work after college, sat behind several desks. At the time, computers were very boring. I just did not do very well sitting behind a desk, and was always kind of reverting back to, what is the best eye cream, or how does that work? Or Glymed came on the scene, and they introduced glycolic acid, and all of a sudden that was like a new day in the skincare world. And so by the time I was 25, I decided to go back to school, and I had landed in Minneapolis for personal reasons, and Aveda was right down the street. So I went back to Aveda just prior to having children, and got my licensing in 1995. Shouldn't actually give out that date, but that was when it was. Horst was still around, and his ex-wife was teaching, and Horst did not know that we had enzymes on the treatment floor. That was hilarious. We hid them from him.
Oh, what have you done with these enzymes?
Well, he was so into plant essences, and Aveda was so natural. The essences you can't beat. Some of the formulations are quite hard for certain skins because you can be very reactive to things that are very, very live. And I'm sure Aveda has progressed since then. I'm not educated on it anymore, but enzymes.
They were bought out, right?
Yes,
So they've definitely evolved.
They've evolved. But enzymes and acids, like we know about the alpha hydroxy acids and beta acids, they were all coming on.
Would have been something that
not in his wheelhouse, correct? Not in his not in his wheelhouse, but certainly not in his philosophy.
Right.
So we literally had them on the floor. They smelled terrible because they were in their early forms. We would have to put essential oils under the nose for the clients not to smell them because they weren't attractive. And
sure.
But we hid them from him, and I could probably get into trouble for saying. Not anymore. He's gone.
Okay, yeah.
God rest his soul.
That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
So you just were drawn to it. You were
drawn to it.
Childhood reason, but also you're a researcher. I know that you love learning.
Yeah.
And things were popping, and you wanted to see how you could bring that to light in your life.
Yeah, and I did have great fortune to, when I did go, because I had children, fast forward a few years, when I went back to work, they were young, but I got really lucky to be hired by a premier salon spa in the Twin Cities, and just fell into a place where I got incredible education, and spent 13 years there before I went out on my own. And so I really credit my original experience to the evolution of becoming a professional rather than it just, because I think the difference between the success for women and men in the aesthetic business is really how you view what you're doing. Because it can just be a job. There's kind of a high failure rate, like in massage therapy, because it's very, very difficult to create a career. There's so much competition. But if you view it as a career from the beginning, it's just, you just find a different path.
Sure. Yeah. Well, that makes sense. Oh, that's awesome. So you mentioned acne, and you briefly mentioned like anti-aging and things like that. So I think those would be the things that kind of come up the most. People think about like skincare is kind of more like reactive, but like who can really all benefit from some sort of skincare regimen or approaching it?
Sure. Everyone.
Okay.
Everyone, we all have skin.
That's true.
We all have skin. It is our largest organ. It's our first line of defense for the outside environment. It's why we were given it. And it has a life of its own. So it really just depends. Just basic care is essential because as we get older, it does break down. And as it breaks down, it does emit a level of inflammation. So if you were talking about the body in general, it's just great to stay hydrated all the time, especially as you get older. And then the question is, what concerns you? I may look at someone, it's kind of like never going to see a plastic surgeon and say, what would you do to me? Because they're going to tell you a whole bunch of stuff they would do to you. And you're going to walk out feeling like, oh, well, I just didn't like this line right here. Do you know what I mean? So never just going and ask someone. Like I might look at you and think, okay, well, this is what I would fix. But that doesn't matter. What matters is what you want fixed.
Yeah.
So it's really important, even when we have a client lay on our table, to say, what are your concerns? Because my concern may not be your concern. My concern may be that you're significantly dehydrated, you're looking 10 years older because you are, but your concern may just be this brown spot that's sitting on your cheek. And that's all you care about.
That's a very kind approach to the beauty industry. I really like that, Sabrina. Well, you said everybody needs skincare regimen. Could we focus on the face today? Since we're showing our beautiful faces on our YouTube channel. Hi, everybody.
Hello, we're glowing.
What's the most basic essential products for the face that all of us need?
The most basic essential products are a cleanser, a vitamin C serum, a moisturizer, and a sunscreen. That's it. I mean, you can build from there.
Maybe what we could do is just like walk through each one.
Sure.
Like what are the benefits and and what's the proper order and all of that.
Okay. So I think I said it in the proper order to begin with. So you would cleanse. Yeah. You would put your vitamin C on first. Clean, dry skin. Typically, a vitamin C is a liquid serum, which means its molecular weight is smaller and it drives deeper into the skin. So from a common sense perspective, you wouldn't want to put a cream on, which is a larger molecular weight, and then try to get something that's smaller through it. So liquids always go on first. In some cases, you can have one or more serums that you use, but your vitamin C always goes on first. It's the most important. Then you would moisturize, and then you would put your sunscreen on. So sunscreens should go on last. Sunscreens go on last in that lineup. After a moisturizer, you really want your moisturizer to drive deep into the skin. Your sunscreen is really meant to sit on the top of your face. Some ingredients, depending upon whether you're dealing with chemical or physical, are absorbed slightly into the skin, but they're not meant to drive deeper in and repair the skin, which is what your moisturizer is meant to do. Then for women and men, if that's what you choose to do, and we put makeup on, that goes on absolutely last, right? Because that's more of an aesthetic application of something. It's not a functional application, although some foundations have some functional characteristics. I typically think of that as just an aesthetic application.
Okay. So, and that's for the morning. Right?
That's for the morning.
Right?
Night is a lot easier if you're not adding any other types of serums or going down any other avenues for anti-aging and or treatments. So you would simply cleanse and moisturize. Pretty easy.
4 things in the morning, 2 at night.
Correct.
It's not so bad.
It's not terrible.
I timed myself this morning. Do you know any guesses how long it took me?
Well, did you let your vitamin C absorb for just a few minutes?
No.
So then it took less than a minute.
No, it took me 4. But
4 minutes. Oh, because you cleansed. Cleansing is very okay. So
I cleansed, and also I had a new washcloth that kind of got had a little pills coming off.
So you had a little extra work to do. Yeah.
But so I averaged
4 is good. 4 is good
for 4 things.
You should cleanse. I'm glad you said that, because that reminds me that you should cleanse for 60 seconds. So
I want to dig deeper into cleansing.
Sure.
Okay, that's good. Let's go.
Okay.
Let's talk about cleansing day and night.
So you 60 seconds. What are you doing in that 60 seconds? It doesn't seem like a very long time, but I think when you're doing it, it probably ends up being longer than you think.
It does, because there have been like cleansing tools in the past. Clarisonic was one that had the little soft brushes, which for whatever reason is no longer with us. And it would be timed for 60 seconds. So it would shut off after 60 seconds. And it really was. You're sitting there and look, I'm human too. It's like, okay, can we get this over with? When is it going to be done? The reason for cleansing for 60 seconds is because if you go in and just cleanse for a few seconds and rinse, there is so much microscopic dirt and debris left on the skin that you don't get because you don't know. So by increasing the time and having kind of this standard of seconds or minutes that you should be cleansing, you're giving yourself the opportunity to really remove more dirt and debris.
And that's just without any a washcloth or a exfoliator. You can just
or a little silicone vibrating cleanser. There are some of those as well.
But you can use your fingers and you just massage.
Sure.
Set the action and for 60 seconds.
Sure.
Okay.
You want to do your neck too?
Neck. Okay.
Neck too.
And beards?
And beards. Yes.
So you can wash your face through the beard? Is that?
Of course. I mean, you kind of have to get your fingers in there, not like fingernails, but you really got to get in there and do some massaging because there was a study that came out, and I'm not going to quote any facts. I'm just going to tell you that beards collect bacteria. That doesn't mean they're not attractive, that we don't love them, but
So I have bacteria on my face right now, is what you're telling me.
Well, it depends on how well you cleanse. I mean, if you get into the shower and you use, let's say, the hair soap that you use is not necessarily good for the skin of your face, like shampoo. Right. But whatever you're using to cleanse your face with, you need to really get in there and cleanse your and cleanse your
like
beard
if I had a beard shampoo, I should really just get in there and get after it with
every day. Every day.
I'm sure that's a product.
Ooh, is there? Because if there's not,
should we do it?
Let's get to work.
Right.
Beard poo.
That'd be easy.
I have some somewhere. I think it's a beard wash. There's like some sort of name. Yeah, I think it's like a shampoo of some type for
beards.
For your beard. Yeah. Okay. Bacteria. That's good to know. That's
so if you
very informative and terrifying.
If you don't remove that stuff and you are investing in higher quality or even just other skincare products, they're not performing effectively. The efficacy rate goes down very low if it's trying to get through dead skin. It's trying to get through bacteria. It's trying to get through sweat, sebum. It's just not getting absorbed properly to get the best results from.
Makes sense.
So you would cleanse at night. Let's start with at night first. You'd cleanse at night first because the assumption is made that, first of all, you've left your home, which didn't actually happen during COVID, but indoor pollution is a whole other category, which we might touch.
Yeah.
But you've collected bacteria, you've collected dirt, sebum, pollution, sweat. You've put on sunscreen, hopefully, which can be pore clogging if you don't cleanse it off. I mean, typically all of us are able to find sunscreens that work for us, and makeup for gals or other human beings. And you want to get rid of that, because if you don't get rid of that, first of all, it's going to age your skin exponentially. I heard this fact once, and I wish I could say this was absolutely true, but I tend to read these like things and they stick in my mind. And I read somewhere along the line that for every night that you don't wash your face, like in particular for a female, like makeup, everything off of your skin, your skin ages 7 days.
What?
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
Because you're harboring, and it does make sense.
No, I don't wash my face at night.
Yeah, this is if you wear makeup.
Well, no. This is just in general, because you're collecting pollution, dirt, debris, exhaust, diesel particulates. You're collecting, just all kinds of stuff during the day on your skin. And so if you aren't cleansing that off, all of those things are contributory factors to loss of elasticity, loss of collagen, hyperpigmentation, just premature aging in general. So cleansing your face at night is very, very important.
Yeah.
So then people will say, and I've read where doctors have said, you don't have to wash your face in the morning. But it's interesting because, with complete respect to all dermatologists, et cetera, out there, they deal a lot with chronic or acute conditions, right? Like you come in, something's happened to your face. How do I fix it? And typically they prescribe a medication, and thank God we have medications to prescribe if you need them. But from the day-to-day workings of the skin, that's not really what dermatologists deal with. So I say, you have to wash your face in the morning. And I don't know one esthetician that wouldn't tell you to wash your face in the morning, because you've gone through detoxification overnight, your circadian rhythms, the recharging process of your body, the repair process of your body. There's excretion of toxins during that process. Bacteria could collect. You're laying on a pillow where there are dust mites. No matter how much you clean, you can't, but we live with those things.
I know, but I try to block them out.
We have a microbiome, we're supposed to be living with those things. We just, unless you're allergic, which it can be a big challenge. But we're living with microscopic bacteria all the time. And, a lot of it is good and a lot of it is bad. But if you're going to get up in the morning and put on your vitamin C serum and products that you have spent good money on, whatever your budget is, then you want them to perform properly. And they're not going to perform properly if you don't prime your face. Like, just forget all of the other reasons. If you don't prime your face to then put on those gorgeous products in the morning, then you're wasting your money.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so
are you convinced, Scott?
We're getting there. Yeah.
To watch
Yeah.
Well,
It's very yes.
At least that. That's it.
You're washing your beard and mustache. You might as well wash the upper 2/3.
Might as well go all the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And neck. All right.
And the neck. Yeah. Okay. Well, so all of that, yeah, it definitely makes sense. I mean, when you talk about all of those different things we can accumulate. So,
Sure.
But how about the thing that I did not know existed, the vitamin C serum? What benefit does that give?
So vitamin C, we know, is an antioxidant. It exists in nature to donate its electrons. Antioxidants exist in nature to donate their electrons to stabilize free radicals. Free radicals are what cause cellular damage. And free radicals, like we make on a great day, like let's say you have a day where you've eaten properly, you haven't drank coffee, didn't have your evening wine, you exercise, you got great oxygen because you had your product from O2.
Yeah.
You're like total, like the picture of perfect health. You have still been hit by at least 10,000 free radicals because you can't avoid them. They're in exhaust, they're in pollution, they're in when you ignite your stove to cook, free radicals come out. So it doesn't, I mean, that's why we have to do all of those good things, because we're constantly neutralizing cancers in our body, like constantly just getting rid of them. So vitamin C, people will say, well, why don't I just take vitamin C? I can take it in the morning. I can go to Walgreens and get a supplement. Well, a whole other conversation is the quality of your supplements, right? So that's for another day.
Right. Yeah.
But you can do that, but you're probably getting poor quality. Vitamin C, like fish oil, is very poor quality. But when you ingest something, your skin, even though it is your largest organ and your first line of defense, it's your last organ of priority for your body. So anything you ingest gets distributed to other things before your skin.
I see.
So the body just sees it as survival.
Correct.
Survival mindset, not as important.
Right. It's not as crucial as your heart.
Yeah.
It's not, especially if you're not cut open. Like if you're like cut open, well, everything, all hands on deck, right? Everything's coming forward to heal that. But it's not important if you're not injured. So even when you're drinking tons and tons of water, which is really important, you're actually just flushing the system. You're not necessarily hydrating the system. So meaning for your skin, obviously you're hydrating your kidneys and your organs, but it's not getting to your skin as much. So vitamin C works if it's formulated properly. I mean, there's a lot of history on vitamin C. It took a lot of work to even stabilize vitamin C, to put it into a suspension that could then be put on the skin and actually breach the skin cell wall.
Oh, wow.
Which is hard to do.
And that's the serum that you're.
That's the serum. Correct.
Do you know what a serum is, Scott? This isn't.
I don't.
I don't know. Listeners might not either.
Right.
Can you explain what that looks like?
Sure. So a serum, there's lots of different types of serums now. I mean, there's all kinds of chemistry in serums. They're encapsulated in liposomes so that they release slowly, but typically they're liquid. There can be some serums that look like creams, but the molecular weight is small. So they're liquid. Typically, you're either dropping them on and rubbing them in, or you do just a pump and kind of move it around your face really quickly. But they're a smaller molecular weight. They drive deeper into the skin, and they typically, depending on what they are, vitamin C is a little bit exclusive from this statement, but let's say it's a hyaluronic acid, or it increases the efficacy, say, of your moisturizer by 3 times, because it takes those same active ingredients and drives them deeper into the skin than a cream can get them into the skin.
Sure. Okay.
Vitamin C really kind of stands alone in a category all by itself because it is a free radical fighter. And it is, and when formulated properly, it goes into the skin, it gets past the skin cell wall, and it builds up a reservoir. So it builds up a reservoir in the skin cells. So typically it will take 72 hours. Once you're at 100%, which takes about 3 days, it will slowly metabolize out of the system as it is throwing those electrons and neutralizing free radicals.
Oh, cool.
Oh.
So after 3 days, you're at 0. That does not mean you can apply your vitamin C every third day and save some money.
Sounds like
I mean,
do that before.
1,000 times. I mean,
That's where my
can.
brain would go for
Right.
sure.
Well,
I'm
you-
good. 3 days? Yes.
You can. I mean, in all fairness, you can, but you're never at 100%. So you're never fully protected to the extent that it can protect you. So, so vitamin C, no matter what type of sunscreen you put on, we talked about this the other day, you can only block about 55% of the sun's rays. So even with a great sunscreen, you're still absorbing UV light. So the UV light that gets past your sunscreen can get arrested by your vitamin C. So it's like your insurance policy.
Okay.
So technically they work together synergistically as partners.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. Well, I mean, okay, yeah. So that those two things being part of the daily
Correct.
part of the daily
So
regimen.
there's a bonus. There's a bonus. So the reason why, and I apologize, I started to interrupt you.
No,
The
you're
reason why vitamin C is so essential is number one, first and foremost, it helps to prevent skin cancer. I'm not saying it prevents skin cancer, but it fights that good fight. It can also neutralize sunburned skin cells. So if you get a sunburn, you can use your vitamin C serum to start neutralizing those sunburned cells that are just screaming because they now are in trouble. But there are anti-aging benefits. So it's kind of like, I always tell my clients, it's like one-stop shop for anti-aging because it lightens hyperpigmentation. It does over time reduce fine lines. It evens out tone, helps with texture. It reinforces capillary walls for people, say, who have rosacea, where you have that flushing, or you have like the tiny veins, which we call telangiectasias. And it turns over skin cells because it is an acid. So it does like all of these things for you, but it's not, this is the other thing too, because if you talk about, were to start talking about, say, a retinol or a retin-A, which that's very, very fast, right? It starts to work very, very quickly. But your vitamin C is like the turtle, the turtle in the hair. The turtle wins in the end. I mean, it's just like slow and steady wins the race. It's great.
Yeah.
And and it's never too soon to start. 20, you can start vitamin C. And it's hard to explain this to someone who's 20, but 10, 15 years down the road, you're going to appreciate what your skin looks like because that is the one thing you've put your money into all along.
Yeah.
It does so many things.
Yeah, I didn't know most of that. That's amazing.
Yeah, it does a lot.
I just did it because you told me to do it.
Oh,
but
thanks.
now I know why. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Vitamin C serum.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's important.
All right. Well, I wanna get to the other important ones. Scott, do you remember the third one?
I
Are
do.
you cheating?
I do.
At your notes right now.
Good thing I took notes. Moisturizer. Yeah.
So moisturizer is, it's super simple and super essential. Moisturizer, there's a plethora of creams out there. You can pick anything you want to pick, and they all have different ingredients. But the most important thing is hydrating the skin. And a hydrated skin, actually just hydrated skin, ages significantly better than a skin that is never hydrated. Because when that natural barrier function of the skin, which is your natural moisture barrier, is broken down and compromised, everything goes down.
Really?
Yeah. Lines show up very, very quickly. You open yourself up to environmental damage much, much quicker. So moisturizer is just simple. It's like, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just,
Nice. Okay.
I remember at one point there was a moisturizer that you recommended that had a anti-pollution factor.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
How does pollution in general affect the face, and how does moisturizer help of any kind, or maybe specific kinds help with pollution?
Right. So when you talk about the category of pollution, there are subcategories. So there's outdoor air pollution and indoor air pollution. And in the scientific world, they have actually found that indoor pollution is actually 300% more dangerous than outdoor pollution. Doesn't mean they're not both, notable. But indoor air pollution, first of all, it's compressed, right? Because typically we're either ACing or we're heating, depending on where you live. And you've got pet dander, you've got possibly mold, you've got chemicals from your draperies, your carpets, your furniture. You have, when you ignite your stove, you have the gas that comes out from that. So there's dust mites, etc. There's just and
all of that's considered pollution, huh?
Yes.
Okay. For the face, or like in general? When we're talking indoor air quality?
In general.
Okay.
In general, because every single year there are, in the two separate categories of indoor and outdoor pollution, there are a few million premature deaths. Now, when it comes to outdoor air pollution, the Asian continent kind of takes the majority brunt hit of that. Mm-hmm. But the indoor air pollution is just kind of everywhere. And then, you could get into the category of radon, which has become pretty big now because that comes up through the earth into your home. Now, it could be a problem or not. You have to test for that. But it's considered radiation, right? Mm-hmm. So you're exposed to all of these things that are compressed within your home, and they take a toll and effect on your skin and show up the same way premature aging does. Hyperpigmentation, loss of elastin, loss of collagen, laxity. Yeah.
So you're saying it accelerates aging, and moisturizing your face might help.
Absolutely.
Any moisturizer might help.
Absolutely. So vitamin C helps because because they're free radicals. That's what, anytime you think about aging, think free radicals, because that's what's happening. 90% of the aging that happens to you throughout your lifetime has historically been from the sun. Right. But now we understand the effects of pollution, and we're beginning to understand the effects of what's called, what was it called? High visible energy, HVE, which is the blue light that comes from all of your devices. So it's all think of it like all in one category, if that makes sense. And then we have this generation coming up that has spent so much time on their devices, up to 4 hours a day. And the average is 3.5 hours a day. The top 20% is 4+ hours a day on a device. We check our phones an average of 150 times a day. So we're constantly exposed. Now there's an easy fix for that, because you can put a blue light shield. You can either put an application on your device, or you can get the shields. So that helps significantly. But your vitamin C's help with that, because again, they're fighting free radicals. Moisturizing helps because when the natural moisture factor is depleted or compromised, then you're just opening yourself up. Diet, ingesting a lot of antioxidants, kind of the things that we always hear, staying away from sugar, eating whole vegetables, whole foods, maybe or maybe not eating whole grains, depending on what you choose to do with your diet. So a lot of that stuff helps with the indoor air pollutions. But it helps with everything. It's all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. So blue light is bad for your skin. We hear a lot of how it's bad for your eyes and how it affects your brain and our sleep and, different things like that. But
it penetrates deeper than both UVA and UVB lights.
Really?
Can
deeper
we go into what all those are for my sake? And
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. So there's UVA and there's UVB. There's also UVC. UVC kills you immediately. And that's filtered out by our ozone layer. UVC is cancer. That's the word. UVA and UVB. The UVB burn. They don't penetrate as deeply as UVA does. UVA penetrates much deeper into the skin, and we now know UVB causes burning. UVA causes aging. UVA also is responsible.
Those acronyms are really helpful, by the way.
They are.
Are you kidding me?
I think that's where they came from,
awesome.
to be honest. As we figured out what they did, right?
UVA.
UVB, aging,
ultraviolet
UVB,
aging,
burning.
and then UV
Right,
burning.
right,
Yeah.
right. So UVB does not penetrate as deeply. UVA penetrates deeper, penetrates through glass, which we did not know at one point. We know now, and windows and such can be treated for UV filtration. UVB is frenetic. So depending upon the tilt of the earth and the season, in the winter, UVB typically is not as present. So you're not as at higher risk to burn in the winter as you are in the summer. But UVA is still present 60 to 70% year round. It's not frenetic because it has such a longer reach. So that's why you should wear sunscreen in the winter. And on a cloudy day, you think you're not being exposed. You have the sense of security. But 80% of the UVA rays are present on a cloudy day. So it's very, very important to wear sunscreen 365 days a year.
And,
wow.
And so that's the fourth. That's the
That's the fourth
regimen.
Correct.
And I think, I'm really interested in the sunscreen part because I think maybe I'm wrong on this, but I think it's the one thing that most people will use.
It's affordable.
And they think they know certain things about sunscreens, may or may not be correct, but it's kind of the one thing that everybody can kind of relate to, I think, more so than maybe the other three elements. So why is the sunscreen important?
Well, it's the most important beauty cream in your skincare cabinet in your bathroom. It's used for all ages, starting quite young. It helps to absolutely prevent premature aging, and it helps to prevent skin cancer. So that's why it's super important.
And everyone, if they had to pick one, would that be the one?
Yes.
Okay.
If you have to pick one,
but you should pick four.
Well, you should pick four. You should pick four, and you should put your money. You should understand that you are going to put the majority of your money in your vitamin C serum because it has to be formulated properly to do what it says it's going to do.
If I go to the store and buy any, can I dependably grab any sunscreen off the shelf of a random store and use it for body is, I guess, different than the face. Maybe I can't use sunscreen on my body, on my face.
Well, so the answer to that question is a little bit complicated because, first of all, you want your sunscreen to be broad spectrum. So if your sunscreen, meaning it covers the UVA and UVB spectrum fully.
And some don't.
Well, some do not. So there's a little bit of confusion in that area because you can have an SPF 15, which is low in my opinion, but it is broad spectrum. Or you can get an SPF 50, which is not broad spectrum, and it's going to give you less protection than the SPF 15. So it's more along the lines of the consumer just not knowing what to look for. So you really have to look for, first of all, just on the labeling, it should say broad spectrum.
Okay.
And then a sunscreen can be physical or chemical. And physical means typically it is titanium dioxide or zinc oxide. Now, in the past, both of those have been completely unelegant. I mean, you remember lifeguards with the white noses.
Yeah.
So what has happened through the years, skincare companies, in particular, like pharmaceutical skincare companies, have developed formulations to micronize it, which means they make it very, very, very small and they encapsulate it. So it sits on the face kind of microscopically. So they've made them a lot more elegant. Now, chemical sunscreens can be made very elegant because they absorb a little bit into the skin. Because
what's the first one, the titanium and zinc one? That's not chemical?
Those are physical. Those are
okay.
Physical sunscreens.
Okay.
And then you have chemical. And a lot of times you'll find a little bit of both in a formulation.
Okay.
You can find formulations now. You just have to read the back of the bottle. Don't just go and grab a sunscreen. Read the back of the bottle. If you're someone who either has a sensitivity to chemical ingredients, because you can develop sensitivities to the chemicals that are used, even though the FDA has said that they are safe, you would be looking for a physical sunscreen. So you would really want to look at the back of the packaging and see, okay, this is a sunscreen that's all physical. They're a little harder to find if you're not wanting to spend a bit of money. because you're looking for those formulations that are just simply more expensive to do. The chemical sunscreens effectively absorb radiation into so a physical sunscreen bounces it off your skin. So it just retracts it, just bounces it back. A chemical sunscreen absorbs the energy into the skin, turns it into heat, and then releases it. So they just act differently. And it depends on your level of comfort with a chemical, because full physical are options. And it depends on your level of sensitivity.
Interesting.
But both work.
So
both work. Both
so
work.
Feel free to tell me I'm doing it wrong.
Sure.
So I am fair skinned. I seem to burn easily.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually stick with like at least an SPF 30.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like putting on like an SPF 30 cream sunscreen because it just takes a long time to kind of like rub it in and have it not look white and, you know, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So I'm going and I'm grabbing that spray SPF 30. I'm spraying it on. I'm doing a quick rub in. Is it working?
It's working.
Okay.
For sure.
All right.
For sure, it's working. I mean, the FDA has deemed them to be effective and safe.
Okay.
I mean, there are some not formulations, but modalities. I don't know if that's a word that I'm looking for, but they've tried to make little towelettes or wipes that have SPF 15s or whatever, SPF 30s or 50s in them. And the FDA hasn't really said that that's an effective way of applying a sunscreen. So there are some that they have been trying to make, but the FDA has not approved. But like your gels, your sprays, your creams, your sticks, the FDA has approved all of those.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's effective.
It's effective.
Okay.
Typically, they're chemical based.
Okay.
So it's just important to know that.
Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So it wouldn't. And if I was listening, it's chemical based. So the rays are actually absorbing into the skin and it's processing and caking it out.
Correct.
Rather than bouncing it off like.
Correct. That's
like
why
like a zinc oxide would be more like that cream that really like, you know, hard to rub in cream that,
it depends on, the products. It depends on how elegant the products are. And most will rub in. It's just a little bit of extra effort.
Just takes a little extra work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Get a little help.
Right.
Get a cool boy.
Get a little help.
Yeah, right.
Pardon me.
Well, going back to more of the face and sunscreen.
Sure.
What is the typical or the suggested reapplication?
Sure.
How many times in the morning I put it on? Am I good for the day?
Okay. So first of all, we should talk about how much.
Oh yeah.
Because SPFs are. So in other words, if you're using an SPF 50, it doesn't mean you're safe for 50 minutes. It means that in the typical amount of time that it takes you to burn, for some people that could be 5 minutes, for some people that could be 15, whatever, 25, depending on your Fitzpatrick, how dark you are, how much melanin you have in your skin, how light you are, how much you don't have in your skin, for protection purposes. So it means that amount of time times 50 is how long it will protect you for.
Oh, really?
No,
Typically,
I don't know if anyone knew about the 50 time in any respect.
Right.
Really?
So that's how SPF is typically, or 15 times that amount of time. Does that make sense?
Wow.
So then but on the other hand, there is the idea that the sunscreen itself is photolabial. So it will break down in the presence of UV or UV light. So, which means it's working, right? It's like putting gas in your car. So you put on your sunscreen, you get it all applied. You have to wait. It's 15 minutes before it's even effective. So you have to wait 15 minutes. So a lot of people go out at the pool and they're applying their sunscreen. I've done it. It's still 15 minutes before it's even effective. Then the recommended amount of time is 2 hours for reapplication, but estheticians typically recommend 90 minutes because at 2 hours, you're out of gas.
Okay.
So if you do 90 minutes, you're covering that gap, like you're stopping the gap.
And this is for my morning face?
Nope, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. Yes, sorry, we're going to get there.
All right.
So with it depends on your level of activity during the day. So if you put on your sunscreen this morning and we're in this office and you're here all day, and you leave your sunscreen should still work for you, because it's not about the time, it's about the level of activity your sunscreen has had to do. Like, how much gas have you used when you leave here? Well, none so far, because you're not sitting in front of UV lights. You could get into really extrapolating all of the information and say, well, but you are sitting in front of blue light here.
And I don't
So-
have a blue light
so some of
protection
your-
on it. I've been,
So
like,
right, so
freaking
some
out.
of your sunscreen is being used because
Okay.
you're absorbing some UV light, right?
Okay.
But it's not as much. So your sunscreen, when you leave here this afternoon, or if you pop out for lunch and you come back, your sunscreen should still be working for you. The beautiful thing is that companies have begun to develop. Is Clinical makes a beautiful one, which actually was so awesome. It's sold out. I haven't been able to get it back in, and they made it in a variety of tones.
I didn't get one.
I know, right? It's coming. It's a powder. So you can, during midday, so you're not going to wash your face midday. You're not going to redo your makeup, and you certainly don't want to put sunscreen over your makeup. So midday, you could pull your powder out of your purse, and you could shake out some powder and, give yourself a nice dusting. And then you're reapplying an SPF 40.
I'm in love with that.
So that's really cool.
Wow.
Does it get clogged in the beards?
Well, so the beautiful thing is that his beard offers him great UV protection on that part of his face.
It does.
That's why we have hair, other than to keep warm as well, right? Because we would probably die from melanoma if we had no hair, and we'd also be really cold in the winter.
Yeah.
So your skin has some natural protection because you have it covered with
Right.
hair,
Great.
but the rest could be covered with
This
powder.
is all going to look real young someday if I
Yeah.
shave it off.
Shave
and
it
then
off.
Just nothing but wrinkles up here.
Well, I suppose it could. I've never seen that.
A man shave his beard.
That would be an
Like,
interesting
young
case
on the
study.
bottom.
Lifetime of having.
I'll
a
check
beard
back
and
in with you
shave.
in 40 years.
Right
See what
on.
happens. Hopefully I'll still be around.
Yeah.
Me
We all
too.
go with all
Me
this
too.
Good skincare we're
Right?
talking about.
Yeah.
So then there's the amount,
Okay.
real quick.
Yeah.
So for the entire body, it's about a shot glass full. If you think about it as the parts of your body, it's a half a teaspoon for each part of your body. For your face, it includes your face and neck. So here's the catch there. Typically, people do not apply enough sunscreen. Sorry. So if you haven't applied enough sunscreen, you're not getting the true SPF. That's another reason to shorten that gap for the reapplication time, right? Because you probably haven't really applied a 50. And you're probably not going to take your elegant sunscreen that we purchased from a nice company that has a little tint in it and put on a whole half teaspoon. That's a lot. You'd be like rubbing.
Yeah.
So you have to be also aware of actually how much have you put on, because that affects the SPF. The SPF.
Okay.
Half teaspoon is the goal for the face.
Yes, the face and neck.
The face.
And you could include the décolleté in that, like the
What is
chest,
that?
your chest,
Okay.
your chest.
Okay.
Yes. So that could be, that's typically the entire face. Like when you receive a treatment, that's the face. And then like your arm is a half a teaspoon, and your arm is a half a teaspoon, and your belly is a half, your legs, maybe 2, because you're a little bit longer there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's this idea of incremental skin damage?
So what you see over the years, as you slowly, you turn 35, you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, where did that come from? Oh, where did that come from? Well, most of the accumulated aging, which then shows up later, like the darker spots, the hyperpigmentation, the fine lines, they're from what's called accumulated exposure. So that's really just your day-to-day life, like running to the grocery store, going to the post office, walking out to your mailbox, going shopping outside and just not thinking about sunscreen, just accumulated damage where you're not burned, right? So you aren't out long enough to be burned. So you don't register damage, and it's just accumulated over a lifetime. And that accumulation is what predominantly causes the aging process. So a burn in early childhood could very well show up later as a skin cancer because the damage is there. But the accumulated exposure over a lifetime is what we end up seeing on our body and face when we're 50, 60, 70.
And they're both not good, right? I mean,
well, they're both not good, but you also have to live, just take some precautions.
Can I ask you how you feel about sun booths? Is that what they're called? Where you go in and
they're terrible.
Is that what it's called? The sun booth?
Like a tanning like a tanning bed?
Yeah. Tanning beds.
Yeah.
Tanning beds. Do they even still exist?
They do.
Oh,
yeah.
That's nuts.
I just,
They do.
How do you feel about that?
So factually, they primarily emit UVA rays. So you do the math.
That's the aging one.
Correct.
So
they're penetrating deeper. They're penetrating deeper. So I'll tell you a story. This is pretty funny. When I was in College Park, Maryland, I had a part-time job at a tanning salon. And I did tan like before spring break, but I would never, it really put me off of tanning because I would see, it's an addiction because it feels good. It certainly must release endorphins. The sun releases endorphins, you feel good. So I watched people come in habitually, and I was literally watching them age right before my face.
No.
And I was saying,
work there?
Probably like the middle of my junior year to the end of my senior year.
In 2 years or so, you saw people getting in front of you?
Well, they were coming in 2 and 3 times a week. Those people probably all have skin cancer now. Because I was quite young and they were older. Not much older at the time. When you're young, you think someone who's 25 is old, but and I remember it just really was like a ding, 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 ding. I was like, that's not going to happen to me. I'm not doing that. It's not worth it. It's not worth it because if you're not someone who's naturally tan or have like a more olivine skin tone, it goes away. Mm-hmm. So you do all of this damage and then it's gone. Or you keep doing the damage because you've now become addicted and you are damaging your skin.
Yeah.
And so I remember a real turning point. I was out of college and we lived in Georgetown in Washington, D.C. in a brownstone. And we used to go upstairs kind of to the roof to lay out. And I went out and I laid out one day with my girlfriend and I got burned. And that night I went to an event where I saw the guy I was dating and he looked at me and he said, "What did you do to yourself?" Because I was burned. Like, it wasn't like I'd messed up my hair. I'd made this horrible decision that, we were going to be stuck with for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
But I had really burned my face badly. And he said, what did you do to yourself? And I thought to myself, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah.
And that was just like a switch flipped and I never did it again. Now, occasionally by accident, my shoulders and stuff like that but I never pursued that ever again. I just said, you know what? This is not worth it. My grandfather died of melanoma. Oh. This is not worth it.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it. I'll go to a spray tan place or not really.
Yeah,
I like going to the airbrushing places.
Airbrushing? Okay. I've done that.
There's some great ones in couple of great ones in the Twin Cities.
Okay.
But even that is kind of scary because you sort of wonder, when are they going to say that those chemicals you're putting in your skin to turn color? Yeah. So even that, I will, like some people are addicted to that. And I just don't think it's good to be addicted to anything chemically that you're putting all over your body. So I reserve it for like vacation. Or if I'm going somewhere and I really want to feel good and feel like I have a tan, I feel comfortable going and doing that, but not on a regular kind of addicted like basis because I just don't think it's good for you. Well, it's just an opinion.
Obviously, we're tapping into the ingrained part of our culture that it puts beauty above health.
Yeah,
and I was looking back through the history of even the SPF and how that was developed through copper tone and other forces of history. And I mean, there were models. I think it was Christy Brinkley who really came out was tan all of a sudden, and then tanning became a thing. Like, it was important to have dark skin, right? Like, or darker skin was a value of beauty.
And people say that it's like you look healthier if you're tan. Right.
Well, what's interesting is
it was Coco Chanel.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say it was Coco Chanel because
and
prior to that,
she was infallible.
Well, she didn't know she wasn't being infallible. In all fairness,
live on Coco.
Prior to that, it was in vogue to have very pale porcelain skin because it was a status symbol. Like you didn't work, you didn't have to work, you weren't of the working society.
Oh, interesting.
You were of leisure.
Yeah.
And then the tan became the symbol of leisure because you had all this time to be leisurely. You could have a tan. If you were working, you couldn't. Does that make sense? Like
Right.
it sort of swapped.
I have time to go to the beach and drink a Mai Tai and get a good
because
tan.
I'm wealthy and I don't have to work. And so it sort of, for some reason, swapped. And that's interesting. But Coppertone, you mentioned that, and I did a little digging on that. Not enough to expand on what we were talking about, but
enough to say something that's somewhat factual.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
We're not blowing hot air. You can fact check this. Originally, there was a going down through history looking at SPF or even just protection.
Mm-hmm.
There was in 1944 there was a gentleman who developed an SPF let's just say a sunscreen so that there's no argument or for the military, and it was called Red. I think it was called Red Vet Pet. I don't even know what the name of the meaning of it, but it was red, and it was like sticky and gooey, but they used it. Very difficult, as you can imagine, to use. But then in the 1950s, it was handed off to Coppertone, and Coppertone moved it into what we now know as Coppertone. What was the original product of Coppertone?
Oh.
So that's where Coppertone got the formulation that they first started with. And they then brought it in like 1956, I think they introduced it to the market. And then, of course, SPF came along.
That was post-World War II. So
post-World War II.
Leisure focused.
Correct.
And we were wanting to show, I guess, wealth and happiness in the media.
I suppose so. Or maybe fight cancer, skin cancer.
Well, now we've had an epidemic of cancers and melanoma and other skin cancers. And thankfully, you're painting and paving a different option for good-looking skin.
Sure.
The 4 basic things. Is there anything else you want to talk about as related to sunscreen? I mean, one thing I think is interesting to me and important is sunblock doesn't really exist.
Correct.
That's not a thing.
Correct. So I mentioned the Sunscreen Innovation Act, and it actually was signed into law in 2014, in November of 2014. And the basic of it was that it would force the FDA to approve other more innovative ingredients for sunscreens that, let's say, they had been using in Europe for a decade. So to date, from what I have seen, still the FDA has not really approved since 1999 any new ingredients because there was a time frame before this would actually be enacted, and it would require them to kind of expedite evaluating these ingredients and their efficacies. And then they would need to inform us in a certain amount of time. But by 2018, it still hadn't been done. By 2019, COVID was hurtling towards us. So it's hard to find a lot of current updated information on it. But in 2020, it was postponed. So there are things that the consumer should know. Anything above an SPF 50, and I believe all of this is a part of getting this information out to consumers through this act. In anything higher than an SPF 50 is really a moot point. Because now it has to be broad spectrum. That's the key, right? Doesn't matter what the number it could be like 350 SPF. If it's not broad spectrum, an SPF 15 is giving you better protection. So 50, the difference between a 50 and a 70 is less than 1% of increased protection. So the standards are, in my mind, like a 30 to a 50, somewhere in there. Okay. With 30 being fabulous. 50 is maybe 3% more. It's
and it
between.
Just means it lasts a little longer.
It means it lasts a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a purpose to SPF 15? I mean, there's 15s are everywhere. And,
well, 15s are kind of where we started. Like you remember, like there was an SPF. Oh, the first SPF was a 2. I think the Red Pet.
Oh, really? I was going to say 5.
2. I think it was a 2.
Okay.
So 15
2 minutes in the sun.
Right. Well, see, the problem with the SPF 15 is most people don't reapply. So only 15% of men every morning in the American culture apply a sunscreen. About 30% of women in the morning, as much as we know about skincare. About 30% of women apply a sunscreen, and about 10% of teenagers apply a sunscreen when they get up in the morning.
That's not good.
Right. So that's why there's, I don't know what the lineup is, but skin cancer is right up in the categories of, leading skin cancers.
Yeah.
And people just don't believe it. I think they just don't. And they won't go in and get yearly checks. So they don't know that anything is wrong.
Would it be a good idea? I'm a dad, so I typically ask questions about kids.
Sure.
On every episode.
Sorry.
That's awesome.
Sorry.
That's awesome.
What about for kids though? Like their morning routine? Is it a good idea? Because like my son goes to school and they go outside for recess or Fayed, different times of the day, and they go outside. Like, would it be a good idea to put sunscreen on the kids in the morning? Or
Couldn't
is
hurt.
that? Yeah.
How could it hurt?
Yeah.
So, and then with regards to skincare for kids, you really, it's always good to teach your kids to wash their face, right? Because it's a part of personal hygiene. And when they're very, very young, they have that beautiful skin. Their hormones have not kicked in yet. Just wash your face. Throw some sunscreen on in the morning. That's a really early ingrained lesson because eventually they're going to hit puberty and probably have some sort of skin challenges. Maybe just slightly, maybe not, maybe bad, So you've already gotten them in tuned with cleansing their face and throwing on sunscreen. So then if you get to a position where they need to add a few more things in, they're already regimented. They already just know it's like brushing their teeth. It's super easy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And sunscreen can't hurt because by the time they get to what's that called where they go out and play?
Recess.
Does that even happen?
It does happen. Yeah, it still happens.
Yeah, by the time they get to recess, there's still protection because they've been sitting indoors.
They've been inside, yeah.
I mean, there's a little bit of degradation because of windows. There's the argument that it comes through windows. They're being protected.
And there's much more blue light that is part of
because
kids'
now they're sitting in front of devices all day in school.
Right.
So another statistic that's really cool is with regards to exposure to blue light devices, 4 8-hour workdays is equivalent to 20 minutes at midday sun, unprotected, like 1 p.m., just like 20 minutes just sitting there. So we're exposed to a lot, our kids. And so I'm super lucky. I always say to my husband, can you just do this for me? And he's like, I can't do that. I'm like, I don't sit behind a computer.
Yeah.
I'm like taking care of people. Can you just do this for me?
Yeah.
He usually does. But I feel so fortunate that I don't sit behind a computer.
Yeah. Well, if you do, we wear sunscreen.
Yeah, or just get your iris put on your devices.
Yeah.
I will.
It's a good idea.
Well, there are so many products on the market. We kind of talked about earlier before the podcast, how we can make this accessible to as many people as possible. So they do have to be good quality products, especially, do you know which one? The vitamin C.
The vitamin C serum. Yes. Most important.
It has to be properly formatted.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So, but we looked at a higher budget using is clinical.
Yes.
Would be around $370 to $380.
Yes. So keep in mind with Is Clinical. So of course they're my favorite. Everyone has their favorite skincare product line. I love Is Clinical because they're pharmaceutical grade. So every ingredient possible, which is the majority of ingredients, come with a certificate of analysis, which means what they say is in it is what's in it. Period. They are a small company. They are still owned by their CEO and developer. They're developing chemist, which is very rare these days. They're constantly innovating, and they have a really big footprint at the Mayo Institute for cancer care.
Awesome.
They have a whole cancer care program.
Wow.
So I love, and the reviews are stellar. They're just always stellar. People, as soon as they run out, they're back in to replace it. So results, they are more expensive. They are a medical pharmaceutical grade line that has merged that pharmaceutical grade, with luxury. So a lot of skincare lines that I've worked with that are pharmaceutical grade have got those incredible treatment products, and their skincare just kind of seems like an afterthought. It's like, okay, we've formulated these great treatment products, but we need to have cleansers and we need to have creams and they're okay. But Is Clinical has done both very well.
And then if you're maybe wanting, this is monthly budget. If you're on the lower end of the budget, quality not compromised, you're going to spend around $228 using a blend of Is Clinical and Face Reality, which
Correct.
is the acne treatment line you also mentioned at the top.
Correct. Great line. It is an acne treatment line, but their skincare is wonderful. So when you separate out their active products for actually fighting acne, their other skincare products are fantastic, and any skin can use them.
Yeah.
So I do want to correct one thing. You did say monthly. This is not a monthly. So typically, skincare, the average amount of time is around 3 months. Well, I shouldn't say average, on the high end. So some of the Face Reality products are formulated smaller because when we're working with acne clients, we want to be able to change them around if we need to. Like, we don't want the skin to get used to what it's doing, because then you can kind of plateau and not have success. So you might go through the Face Reality products a little faster, but they're very cost effective. On the Is Clinical side, you typically want to expect around 3 months out of and maybe a little bit longer out of the serums. So you divide that by 3.
Yeah, so it's like $115
Correct.
a month for the higher end budget, and under $100, just under $100 for the lower budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And this will again help you fight pollution.
Correct.
Fight the pollution from the sun.
Correct.
And blue lights coming from my iPad.
Correct. Correct.
You've given science and fact-based reasons that there's 4 products that are essential to the skin.
Correct.
Are there any reasons that we shouldn't have it? We shouldn't take care of our face?
No. I can't think of a reason why you shouldn't take care of your face.
What do you think other barriers? We've already tried to help with the budget issue as well. What other barriers might somebody have to get over beyond educating themselves to make it part of their daily life?
That's a really good question. I can't really think of any other barriers. Typically, it's education and it's budget related.
Okay, so we busted through all now there's
the
no
barriers.
reason.
Yeah, there are no barriers.
Yeah.
Everyone listening to this podcast or watching us has no reason now to not get 4 good quality
Just get on board. I mean, if nothing else, let's say you find a barrier. If nothing else, get a great sunscreen.
Okay.
That's easy.
Right.
And vitamin C serum, probably.
And vitamin C serum.
I mean, you might as well just cleanse it and moisturize it too.
Yeah.
And of course, there's fancy
While
things
you're
we
at
can
it.
do too to our skin to help repair aging and damage
for sure.
to the skin from pollution.
For sure.
Do you want to say a word about that?
Well, it opens up a big can of worms. But I will tell you that the gold standard in anti-aging, which is really awesome because it's never really changed, is a little bit of vitamin C in the morning and a little bit of vitamin A in the evening. And vitamin A, most people are familiar with retin A, which is more of a branded term. But it's tretinoin acid, and it can be very difficult to use because it causes excessive peeling. It can cause excessive irritation. So there are lots of new formulations now, like retinols, which are derivatives. So when you put on a retinol, it should transform into vitamin A in your skin. So it should lead to less irritation. Has a serum called Active Serum, which is a botanically derived non-keratolytic vitamin A, which means you're not going to peel. It's super easy to use. All skin types can use it, and it will change your skin. So vitamin A is really the one other essential if you want to add to that list that we did not talk about.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Sabrina, I wish everyone was in the Twin Cities so they could have a chance to become a client. And maybe Scott, you think you're interested in maybe getting a facial one day?
Let's start with me doing the daily regimen first, and then we'll see where we get. No, that's really interesting. It's interesting because, for me, I haven't had throughout the course of my life, I haven't had like that much of a daily routine. Sure. I've gone in and out of, some various things. But I'm to the point now where I notice more, with my age, I'm noticing more what my face looks like. And so I've got crow's feet. I've got, smile lines and all of that stuff. And I think there's a lot of products out there that are available that are kind of like anti-aging, wrinkle reducing, and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's just good for us to know like what really can help prevent it in the future also.
Sure.
But then if there are any, like you mentioned, vitamin C, the combination of vitamin C and vitamin A could actually be something easy enough to try and approach it rather than just kind of shotgunning products or whatever.
And then again, to come full circle, it really only matters what's important to you.
Yeah.
And in the end, the only real thing that's important is preventing any sort of terminal illness from melanoma. I mean, that's the only thing that's really important. You may not, I mean, I've been at places with my daughters and, you know, a woman has chosen not to take care of her upper lip. And they're like, Mom, give her your card. I'm like, no, she's perfectly happy. I'm not giving her my card because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's what makes her happy.
Yeah.
It depends on what you want. But at least prevent cancer, melanoma. That's the very least.
That makes sense.
We can't have all of you all the time for everyone, but you do have some great articles written on your website. You blog. You also you have a background in marketing, so you know how to get the word out there on your own sites, and you're on Instagram. Could you share how people can get in touch with you? And
so
where they can find more info?
So it's my name, Sabrina Brow and Skin. My website is sabrinabrowandskin.com. I'm on Instagram at Sabrina Brow and Skin. That's it. Facebook, Sabrina Brow and Skin. It's easy. Just remember Sabrina.
Yeah.
Go rate and review We're Not Blowing Hot Air so more people are aware of wellness and business stuff that deserves more oxygen. And subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an exciting episode.
We hope you enjoyed our interview with skincare expert Sabrina Elhis. During this segment of our podcast, we've been featuring songs by Minnesota-based music artists. Now, we're calling all music artists from around the globe. If you have music that you would like featured on We're Not Blowing Hot Air, email us at info@oxygenplus.com. We're excited to hear from you.